So we're gonna do an update on the RR10 after one of the CVDs that I had in there exploded. I blew the pin out, so we're gonna switch it out for the VP versions, which I happen to have in the drawer. Awesome, and I don't think they're gonna break. And then SSD has some new Pro C-hubs and Pro knuckles for the RR10, so we're gonna install those as well. This is the stuff that we're going to do the install with right here. And Steven found this motor here that this old Ralph Birch slanted brush jobby that Oliver found in his bin one day. I don't even think it's been used really, but I can't decide what turn it is. Nobody really knows how much turns it is. It's kind of a modified brush motor, so we're going to stick that in the RR10 and we'll see how that goes. Yeah. So, let the wrenching begin. I think I told you this already, but I did a little weathering on the bottom of the axles on this truck just so it kind of didn't look quite so plasticky. And got the front end here, tore off it, and it's ready for some new stuff. That's pretty sweet. And onward we go with the Vanquish CVDs and the new SSD Pro knuckles and hubs. Here we go. Okay, so we ran into a couple of problems trying to do this. Of course, this looks really good. We got the VP CVD in there. We've got the SSD Pro knuckle and hub, and it's a high steer, which is really cool, and that's great. Except, you see this silver line right here, right there. See this silver line? What actually happened was that the bolts, the two bolts that hold the knuckle onto the link mount onto the axle housing on the RR10 and the Wraith, these two bolts were actually rubbing on the drive shaft, binding the drive shaft, because these are so big that they don't actually fit between the space of the two screws. Okay, so that's the reason why the line is there. And so I actually had to grind off the screws like this to get more space for this to fit in, so that when they're actually kind of in the same space, they're not touching each other. You can see the line there that the CVD made on the screws, and I'll show you what that looks like here. So this is where the two screws are, and the CVD shaft goes right in between the two of them and actually rubs on both screws. So that's why we had to grind down the screws. So that's one major issue that everybody's going to have to do if you put these CVDs into this housing. Now, the other thing that we ran into is we can't get the wheel on because the RR10 wheel, which is the totally stock stuff with the stock tire on it, it actually rubs on the high steer knuckle right here. So we couldn't actually get the tire to mount onto the hex properly because, as you can see there, the rim is rubbing right on the top of the high steer. So we can't tighten the wheel nut. The wheel nut is like the thing's not even on the hex yet, and it's rubbing on the top of the high steer. So we're gonna have to put the plastic factory RR10 steering knuckle back onto the CVD from Vanquish, and we're going to keep the SSD Pro C-hub in there. and then we ground off all 4 screws so that the CVD would clear. So we're gonna get that back together.
That's a brand new bearing.
So what we did was we ended up with the new SSD Pro C-hub in there with the SSD Wraith steering parts, which were already on it. But now you can see here, let me see if I can get this in the right angle. You see here how the steering ball end is actually kind of inside the rim. It's like half inside the rim when you have the rim seated on the hex properly. And the high steer knuckle was completely in the way of that happening. So that's why we had to take the high steer knuckle off, because this section of the knuckle was raised up here to the same height as the top bolt, and it was like totally intersecting right there, right in the middle of the rim. So we couldn't use the high steer Pro SSD knuckles on these wheels, which is the factory RR10 wheel. Not going to worky. But we did file down the screws here to get the axles free, and you can see here there's like no resistance now. If I move one wheel, they're like nice and free. The axle are not rubbing on the link screws anymore, so that's totally awesome. This is like a simple little fix that I was a little surprised we had to do. But everything's totally fitting now, and it's great. And we've got aluminum hubs, and we've got our VP CVDs in here. And of course, you can't get any more beef than that. So thank you VP and SSD for the good parts. And time to do some more bombing. So we kind of tore into the bomber a little bit here and found out a bunch of neat things. We went to put in the SSD 2-speed, and that went really well. So no problems there. Kind of cool that the bomber comes with the 3-channel buttons already on the radio, so that's really handy. We just plugged in the receiver for the shifter servo. And I bent up this little Z-link here, you can see. Kind of an awkward looking setup because the radio doesn't have any endpoints to set up for the 3rd channel. So all you've got on there is the steering trim, the throttle trim, and the steering dual rate. There's no way to set the endpoints on the 3rd channel. And the way that this changes gears, it doesn't actually move very far at all. And the servo moves way farther than the linkage, so you can kind of see I've got it in 1 gear now, and it's like pretty much right across the bottom of the servo horn. And then when I switch gears, it's going to go kind of all the way over and kind of pushes the linkage a little bit there. You can see how it works. It does the job, and it should work totally fine. The servo is not overworking or anything, but it's kind of annoying. I wish the radio had some endpoints to set up on the 3rd channel, but it doesn't. And the other thing we found was this super old weird motor. It's a brushed motor. I'm going to guess it's probably a 19-turn Pro Wind, sort of an old-fashioned stalker, sort of a mod motor or whatever it is, I don't know. And the timing is set to 0 on it, I think, and so we're going to just wire it to the factory ESC, run it on a 3-cell. That should give us a little more high-speed kick than the 35-turn that was in it, because I think it's probably a 19, that's my guess. But then we've added 1st gear with the SSD 2-speed kit, so we're going to get our crawl speed back without overworking the motor, because we got 1st. And we'll get a little more top end out of it on the flat stuff because we've got higher speed. So we're going to get this buttoned up and then see if we can't get it out on the rocks and the dirt and check it out. Alright, so we buttoned it back up. And now we've got a 2-speed in it, and I'm pretty sure the motor is not a 19-turn, because on a 3-cell it's insane. So yeah, so this is the bomber in 1st gear from SSD. It's kind of screaming, sorry for the noise. And then I'm going to shift it into 2nd. Now watch this. That's like it's like a brushless something monster. I don't know. We're going to take it out in the snowstorm that we're having right now and see if we can do some major donuts. Well, we didn't get it out the door yet. And it had a pretty significant fire. So, and it smells really bad. I don't think you can get the smell through the video, but the ESC, which is the stock one, kind of started to make a whole bunch of magic crackling sounds, and a whole bunch of smoke came out. So, what do you think?
Fire?
I think it needs an ESC now.
Yep.
Okay, let's see what we can do about that. So I pulled the factory ESC apart here. You can see inside there a little bit, it's black right inside the epoxy. And it's kind of funny, these are waterproof, right? So what they actually do is they take the ESC all together, and then they put in the bottom of the black plastic case, they fill the back of the case full of epoxy, and then they stick this down inside the epoxy. So it's actually got like the perfect form of the plastic case on it. And it's just, there's not even a way to do any sort of servicing on this at all. You can even see the plastic mold numbers in reverse on the back. Anyways, there's a bunch of black stuff there, and it still stinks. So I think what happened is the motor that we put in the buggy was actually too high of a turn for this. This thing is probably only good till like 35 or 45 or maybe 20 turn motors or something. I don't know. Maybe 20 turn is a lot for this ESC because of the amp draw. And the motor that we put in there was clearly faster than a 20 turn, so I have a feeling that we overdid it with this little ESC, and I think maybe we'll do a Yeti brushless system on our bomber now. Thanks for watching.